Yeah. So.
Hey, Ronnie, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Awesome.
Cool.
I think that's just down.
That's down to.
Let's make sure the email address. Yeah, okay.
Sorry,
Okay, let's start. Okay, thanks everybody for coming. We're excited to meet today. I'm Austin Taylor. I am a volunteer for Central City Neighborhood Council. And so for our agenda today, we've got a lot of focus on the 300 East corridor of our neighborhood. From South Temple down to Cowboy. We're going to talk about property management best practices. We're going to talk about a development project that's going to be on the corner of 3rd East and 2nd South there. And let's go around the room and introduce ourselves. Say your name, where you live in Central City if you do live here. If you don't, why you're here, what organization you represent. So let's start with Troy.
I'm Troy. I live about 200 South, 400 East, and I'm the Transportation Committee lead for the council.
I'm Rihanna Riggs. I live next to Richmond Park on 600 South and 425 East. And did I say that as the chair? I'm the chair.
Detention Stewart's in the waiting room of the city hall.
Yeah, I'll get her in.
Beth Phillips, and I live down at Wasatch Manor and walk down that way.
Cindy Cromer, I'm a landlord. I have 3 properties on the 60s in Stark.
I'm Brandy Burnham. I'm the vice chair of the Central City Neighborhood Council. I live on 7th South and 5th East. And Brian Sanders, when you get it,
Yeah, I think they're in the wrong way here because I'm not seeing them. So I'll send you the right link.
Okay.
I'm Chris Alderman. I live on just off of 9th South, about between 2nd and 3rd East on Reverse Street.
I'm Tim Cosgrove, Salt Lake City Mayor's Office. Just FYI, my email recently changed, so it's tim.cosgrove@slc.gov. No more .com, just slc.gov.
Was I'm Steve Finale. I'm the Salt Lake City's homeless engagement response team.
I'm Ben Eagle. I live on 100 South between 2nd and 3rd East.
I'm Jennifer with Cowboy Properties to talk a little bit about property management today.
I'm McKenna Tracy with Cowboy Properties also. Tomorrow we support.
Oh, my name is Tim Scott. I lived in District 4 for about 25 years, but now I live like half a block inside of District 5. But I'm here out of curiosity. It's worth some of the time to find out what's going on.
Yeah, you might still be in Central City though, right?
Are you by Liberty Park?
It's still, I live north of 9th South.
Yeah, that's Central City.
Tom Green, 730 South, 500 East.
I'm Afton Morton, and I live on one of the apartment complexes on 400 South.
I'm Brett Anderson. I live on 3rd East, 157.
Did we get Katie?
Oh, I'm Katie Obrey. I'm the facility director at the Central City Recreation Center, right on the corner of 6th South and 3rd East.
Jonathan Olson, I'm the Director of Development for the Housing Authority of Salt Lake City.
Thanks. And then we have people online. Would you guys please introduce yourselves as well?
My name is Ronnie Pacetto. I am a Salt Lake City Public Lands Planner, and I will be talking to you all about Toffer Park and Richmond Park tonight.
I am Sergeant Sanders. I'm the sergeant over the Homeless Resource Center squad, and we're stationed over at Geraldine King. I'm responsible for the area around the shelter and also for calls for service inside the shelter.
Hi, I'm Detective Stewart. I'm the District 3 and 4 community liaison for the police department and the people who live in Districts 3 and 4.
Rebecca.
Yeah, Rebecca.
Oh, hi, I'm Rebecca with the city's homeless team with Steve.
Okay, so now we're gonna jump on into property management best practices, and so to lay this out, to set the groundwork, why we invited Cowboy Properties to our neighborhood meeting today is because along 300 East, specifically from, correct me if you guys from 100 South to about 300 South, we're seeing issues. Is it like that, those coordinates you'd say?
Yes, I would say that's the focus.
Yeah, so there's a lot of low-income housing on the northern end of that street that's not managed well. But in stark contrast to that, there's some Cowboy Properties buildings that are, low-income affordable housing that are managed very well. And so a lot of people are wondering, how, even though these are all affordable, low-income rentals, how can one be a source of crime, home for drugs and all sorts of criminal activity, and the others be clean, safe, and a great place for people to live. And so, we invited Jennifer and McKenna from Cowboy Properties to come tell us the kind of techniques that they use to keep their places clean and safe, and great places to live, and some tips that maybe us as neighbors can use to help facilitate better management of other properties. So feel free to come up here and let us know what you have to share.
Hi. So thanks for inviting us. We appreciate the opportunity. We are not here to judge what other management companies do. We just will share what has worked for us. And probably the biggest thing is you kind of have to have a zero tolerance policy on your properties. How do you do that? You have lots of rules and regulations. And I actually left in my car, but I can send it to you if you want. 3 years ago, we developed the first high-rise downtown Liberty Sky, all market property, high-end. The rules we have there are 13 pages long. We manage Liberty Midtown and Liberty City Walk in between 1st and 2nd South on 3rd East. Both tax credit, 72 units, 73 units. Their rules are 11 pages long. So I say that because just because a property is smaller doesn't mean there's less rules. You have this big list of rules wherever you go. And a lot of times residents don't like that many rules, but the first thing it kind of says in them is you're living in a space with lots of other people sharing hallways, amenities, lots of spaces. And so there has to be rules so that everybody can live there and get along, right? So that's kind of what we start with. And then we go into, we're a crime-free property. It says it right in our rules and regulations. If you commit a crime or are convicted of a crime, you won't be able to live on the property anymore. And all of our properties are non-smoking. So they get caught smoking once, they get a fine. The second time we evict them. And this is kind of sometimes where landlords get a bad name, especially with where rents are right now. And how can you kick people out? And that's a hard part for us. But the issue is if we don't follow those rules and keep people out, then pretty soon we've got not good residents in our communities. Our number one priority is actually happy residents. We talk about happy residents all the time and how we want to keep people happy, but not at the expense of not following the rules and regulations. There's one exception to the rules and regulations are reasonable accommodations for people with disabilities. So we take that very seriously and we try to always give people what they need for their disabilities. But the rules are again, just to try to help everybody get along in the community. So the no smoking, almost all of our communities are pet free. And we're one of the only companies I think anymore that does that. With the new properties that we build, we are actually not pet free anymore. But if you go to any of our properties, we have lots of animals because we have to accommodate assistance animals. We take that very seriously, and if they need that animal, we provide that. There's a little fraud in there that makes it difficult sometimes. But every rule there is, there's people that try to get around those rules, so you just try to deal with that.
Do you mind if I ask you a question? How do you police things like no smoke? I mean, do you have an on-site property manager that makes the rounds or?
Most of our communities, we have a full-time manager there during the day. Sometimes we don't, sometimes the smaller ones, we might have somebody there 2 days a week or smaller, but one of your best tools is your other residents, because they move into a non-smoking community, so if they see someone smoking, a lot of times they'll report them. Sometimes you have people report another resident just because they want to get them in trouble. So you have to have some evidence before you can go as far as an eviction. People they're careful when they first move in, then they start to get relaxed. And a lot of times they'll smoke on the property after we leave. We can smell smoke in certain areas inside, so most people do go outside. If you could get a photograph, take a photo, that's the best evidence you have. If somebody else says it, we'll send them a notice, and if they say, I don't smoke, we'll have a conversation, try to figure out who's right and who's wrong. It's not always easy to get them out the second time they smoke. But in Utah, you can do 3-day comply or vacate notices. And that's what you use for nuisance kind of problems. If somebody doesn't pay their rent, it's a 3-day pay or vacate. If they don't pay in 3 days and don't come and talk to us, we send them to the attorney. If they come and talk to us, we'll wait and work with them till about the 15th of the month, because that's when they get that second paycheck in the month. If we miss that second paycheck, they can't get caught up. And that's where people sometimes think we're not very nice, and it's not nice, but it's a business. And where I say we have about 3,000 units, almost half of those are affordable housing tax credit units. Wow. Which I'm very proud to work for a company like that. And so that's how we can have these high-end properties where people that make a lot of money can afford to live there, but we also provide the affordable housing. And we're not always full in our affordable housing, which is always surprising to me. Most of the downtown properties are full most of the time, but we have some suburban properties where we still have units available. So if any of you know people that need affordable housing, often can get in touch with me. You have a question?
Obviously, you get federal guidance on your ADA, but do you get city guidance on your eviction process? And by that, I mean, in the heat of the summer, you evict someone with 3 days, or in the heat of the winter, and then they end up in St. Mark's Holy Cross, and who's paying that bill? We are. So my question is the city providing any guidance, any program to catch some of the people that are less fortunate that are there? Yeah, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. We actually send a lifestyle letter out weekly to our residents, and it has the resources that we know about to get help with rent. Like CAP, Community Action Program, or 211. We give them food resources where they can go and get food.
Would you have recommendations for us so that we can legislate, so we can provide what is obviously a hole in the net?
When you say we.
Well, the city,
So
what
we
kind of city is it when we throw people out in 3 days and they end up in the hospital because it's dead of winter or whatever, you know, usually there's a breakdown of some sort that causes this. It's not a vacuum.
I mean, we have the Office of Housing and Stability. And they did just a renters resource fair right here in this room recently, a couple months ago. And they're always working to provide access to affordable housing. Additional resources we have through our, what's called our good landlord tenant program. So the landlords participate, the tenants, and they get a reduced fee from the city by participating in that program. If their landlords, if their tenants agree to those stipulations that are in that same relationship that you're describing, then the landlord gets a reduction in fees. If not, if their tenants are causing increased calls for service, and then there's a whole process for that.
Right.
They can get kicked out of the program.
We have landlords I actually have sat through the good landlord class quite a bit. It expires every 2 years in some cities, sometimes 3 years, but.
We can have Tony Miller talk about that another time.
what I would say, if people struggle to pay rent, educate them that the sooner they get into some kind of program that will help them. Because what happens is they get the 3-day notice. And then they, oh, well, I'll go to CAP or some other program and they can't get the funds in time. And this is my 39th year in property management. I've been here a long time. And history shows the more you work with people, the more money we lose. And if we can't, especially on tax credit housing, if we can't keep people in there that pay rent, we can't cash flow that property. You have to have, on the smaller properties, we need to be 100% occupied all the time to be able to meet a budget. We only can raise tax credit rents once a year if the HUD area median incomes go up. If they go down, we have to reduce our rent. If the utility indexes go up, we have to reduce our rent. So we follow HUD for the rents that we charge in the tax credit program. And it just simply won't work if we're not almost full in those units.
Right.
And so it's really, when I like states like California where it takes 6 months to get something out of the market. The tax credit program for us, it's just not going to work if we have to write off 6 months of rent. Even once or twice a year. A lot of those, and our set asides on our like City Walk in Midtown, they go down to 25% of area median income. So you can get a pretty new 1-bedroom apartment and studio for under $1,000, or even less than that, under $600 or $700, depending on what set aside you qualify for. And sometimes those people can't, they have to make twice the rent, but they have to be under the rent limit. And sometimes that might be $22,000, $23,000 a year. So there's that window where you qualify there. And we used to have 300 and 400 people on our waiting list. We still have a lot of people, but that's kind of dropped down. But that's where we're really trying to help. We have, we also own and manage Liberty Metro, which is 100 studios downtown. Those 3 properties, we actually will move a refugee in and we'll pay their rent so that we have 3 units. There's nothing that stipulates that we have to do that. It's just our owners that want to do that. And so we have those 3 refugee units. One of the things that's hard for us is we get a lot of refugees coming in now and they come in and they, a lot of times they'll bring roaches is what we're kind of dealing with now. And I've met with some of the city agencies that help refugees. We've had families come in the past that don't even know what kitchen appliances are. They've never had a bathroom with a toilet, so they keep in the tub because they don't know. So we always encourage anything anybody can do to help the refugee communities that help them know how to live and operate in an apartment, because we have one property now that's 300 units in Taylorville, and we have 4 buildings that are infested with roaches. And if the residents don't help you cooperate with that, we never get rid of them. And so we've actually evicted 2 households because they will not help us. And generally what it is you go inspect their apartment weekly and there's food everywhere and piles of clothes that aren't washed, and it's heartbreaking. But what do? If we don't take care of the people that aren't following the rules, then we're not gonna be able to offer housing to people that do. And we've never had to foreclose on the property, but if we did, probably wouldn't be able to build anymore. We're a builder and then owner operated company. Your investors know the market, and if you don't keep up with the market and get the rents that they want or the tax credit rents, they won't invest in properties, and so that stops development, which some of you might be thrilled about. A lot of people don't like developers. But
one question for you, if you allow. So, like we said earlier, there's some properties around, just north of you that the landlords don't seem to care what kind of condition it's held in and what kind of things go on in those buildings. Do you have any advice for neighbors who want to see that kind of issue resolved? They want to see it cleaned up, things that we can do to put pressure on property management or the landlords to implement the kind of rules and policies that you guys have?
When I go to our properties, I see the police just north of us on that street a lot. We actually built Magnolia House. But then the road home, it's the road home owned and operated now. And I don't want to talk badly, I'm just gonna tell you one thing, our CFO went back to the property a year later. And when you go upstairs in the hallways and the units, it's like terrible damage and graffiti and all kinds of things. And that's what happens if somebody doesn't enforce your rules. So we have this beautiful building and a year later, it's not. And I don't know if they just can't find, it's better to hire people now. COVID and a couple of years after that, we couldn't hire people. We actually had to close our properties some days because we just didn't have anybody to work. And if one person got COVID, you had to quarantine the whole. So it was just really, really hard. The hiring process is better now. We used to have, and this is terrible for me to say, but we'd have to pick the best of the worst applicants. And most of them didn't make it. It was just hard to hire people. I think it's better now. But I think in those areas where they're having trouble, it's probably because maybe they have good rules and regulations, but the manager doesn't have the personality, sort of the guts to enforce those rules. They might be afraid of their tenants that they have in there. I don't know what the reason is, but that's the biggest thing. And I don't know if you can ever through a city have some kind of thing about these are the rules that you have to have at your property. Because our rules are so, and every time we have a new property, I take the last rules and I'm adding stuff to them because of different problems that we've had. You know, you explain how your security cameras work, you explain how the air conditioning works, you explain when rent's due and if it's late, what happens, and that you have to keep your doorways clean. If you put your garbage outside your door and we see it, we're going to fine you. You have to have all those rules. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I'm wondering if you can help us to illustrate how having less turnover in your places. I think that the argument against managing places well is usually that it costs a lot of money. And in my mind, I think that, your business sees that if you provide good service and you have happy tenants, then you have less turnover, then you make good money. Is there any way that we can illustrate the financial benefits to some of these places? Because I think that the argument of it costs too much is just, it doesn't really hold water, but it's difficult to find a good narrative to illustrate that to other people, where we could show them examples of well, if you would, follow up with your management, make sure that they're trained well and make sure that you have all these rules and that you're enforcing all these rules, that in turn, you'll make more money. Because I think without having the financial incentive to do a good job, I think it's going to just remain status quo because they don't see the benefit that you're.
Well, it's really hard to raise rents if your property's not maintained. I think people still try to do that. But if you don't maintain your property, you watch it go maybe from A class, brand new, looks really good, down to B, down to C, down to D. And then pretty soon you have people that you don't want there. What I've found, sometimes we'll accidentally move somebody that's a drug dealer into one of our properties, but they've never been caught. So if they've never been caught or arrested, it doesn't show up on their criminal report. But what happens when you have one drug dealer in an apartment community and we got let in, pretty soon word gets out and all of a sudden everybody goes there. And it's kind of the same with homeless people. This kind of breaks my heart because we are able to move a homeless person into our property. Well, then all their friends find out that they have a place to stay. And so they come and the rules start getting broken and we end up having to make that person move out. And that's really sad, but what do you do? Because you can't have unauthorized occupants. But back to your question, we're very lucky. I'm lucky in this company that I'm with because the owners build the properties and they have, most of them have grown up and lived here. They value their reputation in the community. They want to be proud of the properties that they have. And so they're willing to invest that money back into the properties to keep them looking good. And then we can continue to raise rents to cover the increase in our costs, right? Whether you maintain a property or not, your costs are going to increase. Just look at Rocky Mountain Power right now. They're proposing first was a 30% increase. I think it's down to like 18. Yeah. But you're gonna get that expense whether you take care of your property or not, and if you can't raise your rents, how are you going to? But then I guess what you do sometimes, we have a rental criteria that people have to meet to move in. If you can't find people that meet that rental criteria, I guess you slowly move away from those types of things, you know, or maybe first, you know, if they have any arrest records, we're not gonna let them in. Well, now we're gonna have to add more and more people.
So they lower their criteria more and more.
They lower their
That's what
criteria.
it's-
And that might, maybe what's happening north of our properties. Hello, is that the
Fire department came. You're, yeah,
Okay.
they're just trying to talk, so.
I'm almost done. Time's up. Oh, yes.
Yeah, maybe last question.
Okay.
Do you see any way that the city could modify its so-called good landlord program? So that that the landlord program would move closer to a management program that has fewer problems. And that the city will always say, no, the state preempts, so we can't do it. But so it's actually a really hard question. You've got the city opting out.
I was just gonna say that. You're seeing cities opt out of that program now.
Well, the whole thing was a farce. It's based on Ogden, and anyone who's in the business knows that Ogden's market has been different than Salt Lake's for decades. So, but I think that the city could do more than it does, in terms of providing best practices, and it could kick into the, what I consider coercive fees for people not in the good neighborhood program. So it's the difference, everybody from like $20 to $340 something
Well, it's like,
per unit.
yeah, $20 a unit. And we've had some of our business license fees, that's where you pay it, go up crazy amounts because that city won't participate anymore. I actually, on my downtown properties, every time there's a crime and a police report, I get a letter from the city to me. Pass it, McKenna's one of our regional managers, and so pass it down to her, and we actually, those letters kind of scare me, like, we need to do something about this, because if we get out of the good landlord program, our business license fees go up. So I feel like in our communities, the good landlord program is enforced, because if we get 3 letters about the same unit, I'm not sure what happens, because I've taken care of it before then, but I think they come in and I don't know what they do, not sure. But I think the city, like Salt Lake City, really enforces that good landlord program by sending us letters, and sometimes we don't even know that the police were on our property if it's in the middle of the night, and so they let us know and we can deal with it. So that's actually been helpful in Salt Lake City to us anyway. Have I answered your question at all?
Well, I'm looking for a way to sort of juice up the good landlord program, from where it is now to something more effective. So, it's a tough question.
And you know, it's been around so long, I don't even remember what level it came in on, if it was state or city. Because there's different cities that have it.
Is it a voluntary program?
Yes. Could be volunteer, because, I mean, she's right, the difference would be $30 a door versus $600 a door. So you can pay a business license $6,000 or $90,000. So of course you're gonna,
So is that where the 3 days, we're gonna throw you out to the 15 days where you let them stay to get that payment?
no, that's
Would
resident.
that be under the landlord thing? Cause that's what the whole list.
Sorry to
How does
interrupt.
the city say?
We've got to move on to the next thing.
See what I'm saying? Could we get a recommendation? Cause nobody will remember anything that's not written down.
Recommendation.
Yeah, for best practices for the city, what our responsibility is.
Okay.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, hey, thanks to Jennifer. Okay, so next we're gonna go with committee updates from Central City Neighborhood Council. We've got transportation, we've got events, and just putting the plug out there. If you live in Central City and you want to start a land use committee to review real estate development proposals, zoning changes, we're looking for someone to head up that committee. Also parks, you know, friends of, Topper Park, friends of, Richmond Park. If you want to start a parks committee too, that would be great, but let's hear from transportation.
I was just gonna say, we're also gonna have elections in the next few months too, so all the board positions will be open to apply for, so keep that on your radar. Anyway.
Yeah, for transportation, there's not anything specific that I have. You're seeing a lot of the projects are getting close to that point where they're essentially the most torn up they ever will be, most likely. And they will be phasing out whatever soon at a lot of those. And second south, we've been seeing that happen just outside of our area. But within our actual area, you've probably seen fourth south is mostly done with the asphalt and the concrete. And I think State Street, I don't know if they repaved that yet. But those are the ones that are very specific to us. So I don't have too much to update there. If there are any like specific things, just let me know. The other thing I want to jump over to is the funded CIP projects. And we have one transportation related project that was funded. So they're going to put a raised crosswalk at 500 East, 450 South. So there's the Smiths, and then there's an apartment building across the street that I think is First Step House. So that's actually really great because there's a lot of people that hang out on the park strip there. You'll see people playing cornhole or whatever. Then the Smiths is across the street, so you can see how there's an area where people want to cross the street and get groceries. And I would have to guess that people are just running across the street, and that's not great when there's 5 lanes. So they're planning to put in a crosswalk there. I assume there'll be some kind of like flashing lights or something like that. Not sure if they'll do it. And CIP projects usually take, I think, at least 1 to 2 years to actually come through. So I don't know if we'll see it next year or 2 years. So that's probably just good for that. The other thing I just want to mention real quick before I move to something that's more parks related. I see Cindy looking at me. We'll get to Liberty Park next. But I just wanted to say that the CIP projects for next year, like the next round of submissions will be due at the end of this month. So if there's something that we want to submit, if there's anything transportation related, let me know. If not, I'll look through what we did last year and discuss with the board about what we should do, because it's good just to get something in. But if there's anything specific, let me know. And for other CIP projects, that applies to parks. But I might turn it over to someone else for Liberty Park, the greenhouse restoration. I don't know if that would be Cindy. You know a lot about it.
Yeah, let's talk events first.
Okay.
Yeah, just we have our Pizza in the Park event on October 11th. Right now, it's at Richmond Park, but if it's cold weather, looking at other options. So, and we are accepting donations for that event. So if you like to make a donation, just come see me. And I think that's all for events.
Yeah, how much are we looking to raise for that?
$1,000.
$1,000, and we've already got pretty good amount of donations. We're very close to $1,000. We're hiring food truck. Generally, the pizza from this food truck is like $10. So donate $10. Feed your neighbors. It'd be great. We have a PayPal link, so come up afterwards and you can just donate on PayPal. Okay. Any other committees on this? Public safety.
They have a sister city committee, and I noticed one of the cities is in Russia. And it would be bad form to send something to Russia right now. I think inadvertently we can get somebody in trouble for something, so. Someone needs to get that city off the committee, I think.
Thanks. Maybe you can talk to Tim for all city related stuff.
You want to actually to Stuart or Sergeant Sanders talk?
Yeah, we'll do them during the committee updates, but just so everybody knows, related to public safety committee. The board of Central City Neighborhood Council is putting together a letter to encourage city administration to enforce no camping in parks and no drug use. So we've seen ever since the Pioneer Day sweep of Liberty Park, a lot of people have been pushed into Richmond Park, Copper Park, Artesian Well parks, and even east into the Herman Well or Herman, what's it called?
Oh, Herman Franks.
Herman Franks Baseball Park. Brandy has all sorts of pictures of needles, poop, trash, everything you can imagine, aluminum foil, glass pipes. There's just a lot of drug use and criminal activity that's happening in our parks. And we really want to put some pressure on to get them clean and safe, especially when we're seeing great upgrades in our parks like Topper Park. We're really sad to see those things get destroyed. So we put together a letter.
Sorry, we just came late, but we live over by the Artesian Well Park. How can we put pressure on that? Because we see them camped out over there.
I'm
all
working,
the time.
I'm working closely with, speaking with Captain Charlie Goodman and Samuel, Sergeant Samuel Fallows regarding that, so I send them messages daily. Communicating to them what's going on, because I have access to the security camera in the house that's right attached to it. So they send me clips and pictures all the time. So I'm actually physically going over there and cleaning up and addressing the issues, and
Yeah, we've seen them bathing
Yeah.
right there in the water.
it's something we're working really closely to get corrected. Some days are better than others. You might see it fluctuate a little bit here and there, but we're trying to get it so that it's not an issue. We put up new signs. But we really have to hold people accountable. If you see something, it can't just be me calling in all the parks. It has to be each and every one of us. There has to be multiple calls. There has to be a Salt Lake City mobile app submissions. And we just have to do it over and over and over, because people don't get it in their head unless they're inconvenienced and uncomfortable by people's attention. Or maybe they'll move along and not be there, and hopefully not do drugs in the park and all that, but we have
I
to.
would suggest two things. First thing I would suggest is when you see illegal activity like camping, parks close at usually
11
10
p.m.
p.m., 11 p.m.
There's
And they
signs.
don't open until generally 6, 7 a.m. If you see people sleeping overnight, call it in,
Please.
right? Call the non-emergency line.
No one should be able to do it.
So I would call in things when you see them.
Okay.
And then the second thing is Brandy's setting up a meeting with some people who are higher up in the police department about Artesian Well specifically. So you two should connect after this meeting, see if you can get in
Okay.
on that meeting.
I'd like to add too, that I found the blessing of living downtown and all of the negative things that it is we see has kind of stimulated me to interact with my community a lot more, and it has been a huge benefit to me. Occupying space and talking with your neighbors and exchanging phone numbers and sending messages back and forth about what's going on, being available to help people when they're in need. Just occupying that space and letting people know that that you're human beings and they're human beings and that everybody should be civil to each other seems to really discourage a lot of very uncivil behavior. And that's a lot of times it's hard to do when it's just you, which is why it's great that we have a community. We have a lot of other people that feel the same way. And if you interact with those people, I think they'll find it's really effective in curtailing uncivil behavior.
We just moved to the city a year ago and we love it. And we already do that. We interact with our neighbors. We know a lot of our neighbors around the area that we live in. And so we just want to help make this city a better, safer, friendlier place for everybody.
We're so glad you're here.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you for caring. Okay, let's move on now to city updates. And so since we're already talking about public safety, let's turn it to our two police representatives. We've got Detective Stewart and Sergeant Sanders. Do you guys have any updates you'd like to share?
Hello, everyone. Let me turn it this way. I'm going to defer to Sergeant Sanders for a discussion about Tuffer Park, since that is in his area, and they're doing a lot of efforts, and he has some. He can speak to that. As far as the crime statistics in Central City, for the month of July, year to date, as opposed in comparison for the 3-year average, the violent crime is down 22%. The property crime is up 71%, but when you break it down, it's burglary that's up 14% and theft. So larceny, not vehicle theft, but just it's called theft all other, or so multi group. So doing pretty good. I mean, doing really good in violent crime, but just the reports of theft are up in Central City. So prevention again is the best thing. A lot of those, when I break down the cases, are reports of unsheltered individuals is stealing from each other, which is to be expected. Well, it's not to be expected. It's unfortunate, but a good number of those cases are those. And that's your crime statistics report for July. And then I'll turn it over to Sergeant Sanders to talk about the things he's doing around the area around the Geraldine King.
Hey, so like I said earlier, my squad is over the area immediately surrounding the shelter, which includes like Toffer Park, as well as like Richmond Park. And so we've been obviously hitting the park pretty hard since we started a year ago. And in the past year, we've seen a 17% decrease in calls for service around the shelter, as well as a significant drop in the SLC mobile app submissions. So that's, you know, for like illegal camping. And so we have seen an increase in illegal camping though at Toffer Park, which we've all seen it, which that's directly related to some of the closures in other areas that we've seen, like with the library being closed, parts of Jordan River Trail being closed, as well as Liberty Park having that kind of like that push out, that closure that happened a month ago, essentially kind of pushed all these people who normally are camping in certain areas, you know, they've kind of tend to come to other areas. And so, which unfortunately we've seen that increase the camping in Toffer Park. My squad, though, we have been hitting it pretty hard this past week and we'll continue to hit it. Even today, we did an operation in the park with our special investigations unit, like the narcotics detectives, where we arrested a drug dealer in the park. We'll continue to utilize advanced services though, and clean up obviously any illegal camping, any abandoned camping equipment that we see, and we'll continue to enforce everything that we see in the park that is against the law. So hopefully as we start this hard push, we'll see a difference here in the next little bit, and hopefully it we'll maintain that that cleanliness in the park.
What can we do to hold people accountable that are continuously littering and leaving their drug paraphernalia or making outbursts in the park? Is there any way to cite people better, like ticket them for littering, or I mean, what can we do to deter the behavior? Because if you mention it, even if you're kind to someone and say, hey, can you please not leave this stuff around, or you do this or that, you usually get responded to with swearing and screaming and stuff, no matter how kind you are about it, even though it's a common courtesy and decency thing to keep your spaces clean.
Right. So I mean, right. So one of the things that we do see like a lot with like Toffer Park and other places is that a lot of times the homeless people are just literally just sitting there, like not breaking any law. And so we can't tell them like, hey, you can't be in the park, because they're allowed to be in the park. But when they have all their crap with them, if they're, camping, their camping equipment, if they're littering, smoking, yeah, we enforce all that little stuff, where we'll cite them. Typically we'll warn them, and if they continue to do it, that's when we escalate it to citing them or even taking them to jail.
And just to clarify Brandy's question, if just an everyday resident sees someone using drugs in the park or just throwing trash on the ground, should we be confronting them? Or, what's the best plan of attack when we see that kind of thing?
I would not confront them personally, because a lot of them can be violent and typically they don't care what you say. So I personally would not. But I mean, obviously it's up to you guys.
Report it, please, everyone. The more we report it, the better. Especially if you see.
So
smoking.
I mean, we're well aware of like the issues in the park. Like we go there constantly. I'm sure Brandy's seen us on her camera going there constantly. And so yeah, so I mean, we're well aware that people go there to use drugs and stuff, but obviously we can't be there 24/7, but we do, cite everything that we see. We're constantly enforcing any criminal activity that we see that is occurring.
Is this a temporary problem, or are we gonna have campers in our parks forever? And why can't we have 24/7 a cop sitting there?
Well, cops are on 24/7, but it's patrol officers that come by.
Patrol officers just standing there like old time, just walk around from park to park.
They're usually on.
That would be nice. Well, if you have if you know the secret to solving homelessness, be sure to pass it up to the mayor. I'm sure she'd love to
These
hear it.
officers are typically, they go to 24 calls, their whole shift, they go from one call to another, so they don't have to move it around and watch, they're sending them.
You know, I'm not talking about solving homelessness, but if the cop's standing there, they're not gonna shoot up, it seems to me, which is what we're talking about.
That's like, park, adult babysitting, I just stand there and watch.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were joking. Yeah, we definitely can't. We don't have a cop to stay there 24/7.
Yeah,
I
I
mean-
wish we could have a cop to stay in every location 24/7. We have 20, 30 calls holding in patrol on every hour, so we definitely don't have bodies.
But I mean, we do hit that park constantly when we're on duty. And if you look at like last summer when we first started, like Tofford Park was pretty clean. And even most of this year, it was pretty clean. That's why you see that decrease in calls for service. Like I said originally, you know, there's several factors that have led to it kind of getting to where it is now, which it should be fixed here pretty shortly as we, you know, continue to enforce there.
Today it looked pretty good, I was looking at the camera all day.
Okay, let's move to the next city updates. I know I see fire department here. Do you guys have something you wanted to share?
Yeah, I'd love to share one, but that's Matt, what's the station one over here? Thanks for having us in. Got just a couple quick things. So September is considered the National Preparedness Month. We have a CERT class. Are you all aware of what the CERT program is that the fire department has? It's the citizen's first response team. So basically what that is it's training you guys to respond in the event of an earthquake or some natural disaster that we're gonna be so busy, it's gonna take us a while to get to you to fix whatever problems you have. So what this class does is it trains you on some basic first aid, how to control utilities, some basic stuff that help mitigate any further problems as that disasters happen. That starts on September 10th. So if anybody's interested in that, along with that, there's also a ham radio class that is coming up. And all this information is on our website, and I'll also leave the sheet there with that information. But all that's on the website, you can get those dates and on how to sign up. The one other thing that we have is we have a QR code on here. Our administration has a strategic plan that we're looking at for the next 5 years. And they want to get feedback from you, the residents who we serve, on what you would like to see the fire department improve on or not do. So they kind of got a little survey here. All you do is click on that QR code and that will take you to the survey and do that. I'll do that here. With station one, just to kind of let you know, for the month of August, we ran just a little over 450 calls. So that's pretty good. I mean, averaging quite a few calls per day. Do you have anything for me?
Well, those 450 calls, is that mostly like these call for service for somebody that's in distress, like they're like paramedic type?
Yeah, so it's probably about 70 to 75% medical wise, and the other is for the fire side of it. So on the fire side of it ranges from the actual fire to just another fire, the fire alarms going off.
Also, thanks for putting on the fire in our parking garage at our building.
Oh, I think that's us. Yeah, we're happy to do that. That's why we're here. Anything else?
No, thank you.
Great, thank you.
I can take those.
Okay, let's go.
All we just here and taking a copy.
So the house number one is office. I got that autograph number 5 Tonka truck. Right there.
Hi, everyone. Tim Cosgrove from the mayor's office. Thanks for having me. You probably participated, some of you participated in the walking tour of planning and zoning last month. They're consolidating our commercial and mixed use zoning districts. If you weren't able to participate on that, I did bring some of the information from, so they're consolidating 27 districts down to 6. And it's going to make it easier to understand. easier to explain. I went on a walking tour in Central Line. Saw an overview of the map and then being boots on the ground, it kind of helps you put it all into perspective. But the planning commission would like, or the planning, zoning and planning would like your feedback. So if you don't want to take one of these, you can scan the QR code here. Or if you want to take this information, it is also online. They're still working on that, and I wanted you to have the opportunity to participate, and I chose to do so. I know that's an area of common interest that we hear all the time. Welcoming week is coming up. It's the September 16th from 10 to 12, right over here at Washington Square at the City County Building. Welcoming week is the highlight for our immigrants and refugees. It's where we want everyone to feel welcome. The mayor will be doing a ceremony over there and planting a tree for our new residents here in the city. I encourage you to participate. There's also voter registration drives going on in Salt Lake County's doing over at Sorensen Community Center. So there's a lot of city, community, nonprofit groups working to make them feel home and bring about that. What Ben and I always talk about, building community. Capital improvement program kicked off September 1st. So this is very popular. If you have a project, it can be citizen driven. City council, we've seen it come from community councils, we've seen it come from businesses. But this is your opportunity to say what you would like to see in the city. The applications are open until the end of this month, September 30th. It's also online. It's for projects that have a infrastructure of 5 years or more. And begin with $50,000 up to $500,000.
This is CIP.
Yes, capital improvement program, CIP. Yeah, open streets, the granary, probably you're familiar with Granary Live. This is, we did the Green Loop pilot last year over here on Second East. It's now down here on 9th South, 5th West, 8th South, 8th South, 5th West. Go down there, check it out. It's very engaging. There's beer gardens, music, activities going on out in the street, people riding bikes. A lot of the businesses down there have invested in attracting a lot of people on foot. There's bike charging stations, so you can ride your e-bikes down there. But that's every Friday and Saturday for the month of September from 4 to 10. Want to check that out. Any questions for me?
Yes. As a newly citizen or Salt Lake City resident, my husband and I were both shocked at the homelessness problem. We didn't realize it was as bad as it is.
We just never liked this.
Yeah, I know. When I stepped foot in Salt Lake 45 years ago, there was virtually no homelessness. What is the mayor doing about it?
There's some city county or working on, there's like a long-term plan.
The city and county
City counties, yes.
and state.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have like city the housing and everything. There are certain projects in place.
Okay, we were just wondering if the mayor, if her eyes were closed to the problem, because we just.
Yeah, we over the last year, we go for that. We kept the what we call events open. We're trying to get more original events for this project, so we can possibly still not.
The mayor and the city council just finished the fiscal year budget for this next fiscal year between July 1st, 2025. Put in more money than city councils have ever made. $17 million for affordable housing. That's up from what we did last year, and up from what we said the year before. It was like 10 million, 6 million. So the city is still building with a lot of money in for infrastructure for affordable housing. Where we got some participation from the state, this last year. We did it was called temporary shelter community that the city piloted first around 600 West, 3rd South. We put in 50 units and they're kind of like a shed and trailers. But they have air conditioning for summertime, heat, in the wintertime. Very successful. The state liked the pilot, so they adopted it, and now they're building one like state sanctioned campsite on 7th West and 5th South. I was over there last week. They're putting in the electricity and the water infrastructure. They've already moved those same units onto that property. Stephen works with our heart team, our homeless engagement and resource team. They do a homeless resource fair second Friday of every month, citywide, usually in Pioneer Park or here at Library Square. Doing a lot of outreach to the homeless population. We have the VOA, Volunteers of America, that are constantly going out there every day, day after day. We have 3 homeless resource centers that the city paid for and built. One's the men's shelter on 3300 South, 1000 West, the women's shelter on 7th South, 131 East, the co-ed shelter on 242 Paramount Avenue, just off of 300 West. So that houses about 700 people that are experiencing homelessness. They say the typical time frame for a person on the streets is that 6 weeks, Stephen?
Most people self-resolve, the majority.
But it's transitional. And then we're working to build some of that transitional housing to help them transit from on the streets to a more permanent affordable housing. But in the meantime, that transitional housing. Utah Valley Coalition Against Homelessness, they put in a what we call a co-loo shelters. And so in the winter time, temperatures drop so cold. We don't want anybody out there on the streets. We have vehicles that will take them to 33 South Redwood Road. We participate a lot with nonprofits, the Methodist Church and the Episcopalian that have warming shelters, as well as from Central City rec center.
The rec center,
Oh,
the rec center.
What's her name? Katie, they just laughed. So she's one of our champions here in having a cooling place that persons experiencing homelessness can go right there to the West Rec Center, and a warming place in the winter time. Right there.
Yeah, well, that's good to know. And it was not, I wasn't pointing fingers or blaming. I just wanted to know.
I would recommend reaching out to the state representative in the legislature. Here in the group, the plan that's here, and that was the way to use it. Homelessness isn't by themselves.
And Stephen is really good to talk to, because he's on the city's homeless.
Oh,
That's what we really need is contact your state representative, your state legislator. They're the ones that fund this or don't fund it.
And what did that be? Is it Jen Plum and Shane Daily Purpose or the?
Yeah, so in our areas, we've got Joel Briscoe. He lost the primary. General elections is November.
Oh,
Am I right?
right.
So it's still, it's. Yeah, he'll probably not win.
Oh,
He's
okay.
probably not gonna be it
Oh.
this year. Yeah, but for now, for now, we've got Joel Briscoe and Jen Long. But you can look Jen Long.
PLU. She's the one that's I guess the owner or CEO of what is it called? The lot.
Yeah. You can look on the state's website, it has a map of all the housing center districts, and just put in your address, it'll tell you. Okay.
Last thing, there's a lot of information on our feed on SLC.gov /feedback. So feedback community in the different departments and parks, public utilities, planning and zoning. They want to hear from you on these different investments that we're making. There's in the city, please go to that feedback community site and have your comments.
Thank you. So we've got Ava Lopez, which is our city council representative. So Ava wanted to share something with us really quick, and then we'll go surrounding.
Thank you, folks. Tell me if you can hear me all right.
Yep, we can hear you.
Apologies, I can't be there. I got stuck in another same time. But it is giving scholarships to District 4 students that we could be here to celebrate them. Give me one sec real quick. I'm just grabbing my notes. One moment. Okay, amazing. And I'll email this over so everybody can have access to this. What I was most excited to share with you all today is the urban forestry audit that I was able to conduct with city staff for the central city area. And the reason I wanted to focus on this is even though we're at the end of summer, we just got done with our CIP funding, which is our capital improvement projects. But in these projects and in the new developments we're seeing in central city, there is actually this year, we have not seen an increase in trees planted or requested. So this is something that's really critical that I want to tackle with you all. In short, we have 3,348 trees total in the central city area. These are following the community council boundaries. As far as trees serviced and removed, we've had 9 removed, which is great. Trees planted, we've had 108, but these are not trees that have been requested individually. So just a quick note, those 108 trees were requested in prior years. So that's good, but we currently don't have any requests, and that's necessary for the upcoming planting season. The way urban forestry tackles this, so if you have any questions, please raise your hand or let me know, because I don't want to confuse you, but the way urban forestry plans how they plot their trees, you have to request it in advance of the planting year. So for each of you that believe in our urban canopy, want to see it expanded, want to see it invested and cared for, it's critical that we request it now. And so I've started to do this when I take my walks around Central City to look for areas in the public right of way. This would be the median space between your home and looking at where a tree might belong and making sure that we request it there. The adjacent property owner has to be willing to water it. So other communities have set up an urban forestry subcommittee and they've come up with watering apparatuses. Unfortunately, as a city, we're still exploring what a water truck or what other solutions might be. That's an administrative process. So I couldn't tell you what that study will come out to be. But as we wait, it's still the adjacent property owner's responsibility to care for the urban canopy. Any questions before I provide some more information about that?
I got a question. We have a blight going around on 5th East and 7th South by the LDS Church. And we have about 3 or 4
Hey, if
trees
someone's speaking, I
dead.
can't hear.
Oh, a neighbor is just saying that there are a few trees that are dead because they've gotten some kind of illness.
There's been a blight for like 4 years. It's gone around and killed the cherry tree across the street last year. A couple years ago, killed an apricot tree. But I mean, it just comes around.
Yeah.
And right now, there's a couple dead ones right along that whole.
I've seen those.
Yeah.
Have you reported to the urban
I
forestry?
talk to the bishop, I go to all of them and say, hey, but I don't know if you cut down a tree, like, I don't know anything about it, I just know.
Yeah, they're in the park strip. So if they're in the park strip, it's city property, so you should report that to the city's urban forestry.
Yeah, it's all the way around that whole church and.
I'll follow up with you and get the address.
Okay, thank you. And we are
Thanks.
tight on time, so let's go quickly and let's limit questions here. Okay, Ava.
Thanks so much. The final thing was just talking about in air quality. Again, why does an urban canopy matter? Because in the central city, we took temperature readings above on a 104-degree day. We calculated about 124 to 144 degrees, a significant jump in temperature. And then the carbon dioxide uptake, this means the carbon dioxide that our trees are able to digest is 209,000 pounds of CO2. So this is a critical need for our infrastructure. Finally, I just wanted to mention some two really awesome CIP investments that got passed in the district. We had a lot in regards to traffic safety, a lot in regards to signage, but two projects that I was able to usher in was Fayette Avenue. It's adjacent, it is in Central Ninth, but still a critical project in relation to parking. I think it's something that this community can model after. And then the second one was the Harvey Milk Visibility Project, which is to bring more art. There was an increase in the 1.5% art fund. So there's lots of future art projects in the downtown and in Central City specifically, which is really exciting. So I've requested from Arts Council that information. Again, if you want to submit for next year, that's the Capital Improvement Program project. You can get in touch with Tim or I. We'd be happy to work together on that. It's something that council approves. Unfortunately, Central City had the 600 South transportation project. It was not funded because it was seen as a different funding mechanism could bring forth that traffic calming, but we did fund a crosswalk on 5th East across from the First Step House to Smith's, which is a necessary investment in the community to stop those individuals from illegally crossing the crosswalk, but to safely do it in a manner that helps them get to the grocery store. So that's the type of investments we see. Again, I'm really excited. We were able to mitigate the GO bond last night at council. So Topher Park and Richmond Park are receiving an extra $300,000. And Pioneer Park will be receiving an extra $3 million from that. And so we're seeing some excess funds going to our parks for those necessary projects and improvements. And that's all I have for you today. Please get in touch with me. The county is going through their budgeting process. So I've reached out to Rihanna, Brandy, and Austin just to let them know. But if you have any concerns or if you've had the chance to look at that budget, I'm requesting funds for the Central City Rec Center. But if there's any other county facilities that you'd like to see improved, I'm just an advocate. But again, this is something that we have access to. And as a community, we can request from Mayor Wilson and the county council because they have an extremely large multi-billion-dollar budget in comparison to the city. Thank you so much for the time again.
Thank you, Ava. We'll switch to Ronnie for a couple minutes, and then we'll go to Jonathan from the Housing Authority to talk about projects going on. So Ronnie did updates for us, and so you guys
Awesome.
are, Ronnie's from the Parks Department. She's working on the Topper, Richmond, and Liberty Park playgrounds.
Yeah, so last time we talked about this space, it was in June when you were actually, digging hands-on and putting that playground in. And so I think it's a wonderful, fantastic improvement in that space, but that was just the beginning. And so ever since June to this point up to now, I've been working hard and diligently on addressing some of those safety concerns and community desires for the space. For both of these spaces. And so I'm proud to say that this Friday, I will be releasing the final concept design alternatives for Toffer Park and Richmond Park. So you'll have two designs to choose from for Toffer, and you'll have two designs to choose from for Richmond. And so I'm incredibly proud of it. I hope you all feel the same way. But we still have so much to do, but I'm really proud to go along this journey with you all. With that being said, I will make an announcement through social media. I will have yard signs posted in both of those spaces. I will share the release date with the Central City Community Center as well. And they will actually host the open house on September 26th from 5:30 to 7:30. So if an online survey is not your thing, feel free to come there, and I'll be glad to hear some of your thoughts and inputs. Also at that open house, I will start kind of brainstorming with you all about some of the namesake signs, because I know some of these members are very important to you. For instance, Mr. Toffer is important, so it's important to acknowledge his legacy. It's important to acknowledge Mignon Richmond's legacy and so many others. So I'm really excited to join you all and listen to your thoughts and just make this space truly unique and safe.
Thank you, Ronnie. We appreciate it.
That date for the open house, which one is the
26.
26th.
And we'll be sending the survey and the newsletter, so you'll probably get our email newsletter. We'll send it out, you can take the surveys.
What time is it on 26th?
What time is the open house at the?
It's from 5:30 to 7:30 at the Central City Recreation Center on September 26th.
Okay.
Thank you, Ronnie. So from here, we'll be turning the time over to Jonathan from the Housing Authority of Salt Lake City. You guys probably all know of the former public safety building, which is on 200 South and 300 East. The building has been vacant for at least a decade, if not more. The city government owns it, and city government put out a request for proposals saying, you know, real estate developers, let us know what you would do with this space. If you were to acquire this space, show us your plan. And the Housing Authority of Salt Lake City, along with one of its partner groups, won the RFP. And so they have the contract with the city government to redevelop this space. So Jonathan's going to tell us about it.
Thank you, and thanks for having us out to talk about this project. We think it's a really exciting opportunity to lift this neighborhood. And we are viewing this as a community effort. And we think that it's going to be something that is really beneficial, both in the short term and in the long term, to have a really quality, relevant apartment complex in this location. So, you know, I think probably most of you are aware that the public safety building, formerly the Northwest Pipeline building, has been vacant for some time, as well as some of the parking lots surrounding it. You know, they've just been fenced in. You know, that's kind of attractive for crime and other things. So our intent is to really inject a large amount of money and effort in the short term and in the long term, like I mentioned. So this is going to be 167 or more $1 million that's going to be invested into the neighborhood. In the short term, we do plan to activate the site even before development begins. Probably, you know, food trucks, events, things like that will activate it, rather than just being kind of an empty fence area. We think that that's going to give an opportunity for the neighborhood to understand that area, that location, but also, you know, when the lights are on, when people are around, you see less crime, you see less of the kind of negative influence as well. The plan is to have 3 buildings. The public safety building is a historic building on the National Register, so that's going to be renovated as it is. It's going to become housing, and we anticipate about 63 units of housing in that building. The other 2 buildings are not existing at the moment. But will be, and that's going to add about another 181 units. Something that's a little bit unique about this property is that we have a fair number of units that are larger, 2s, 3s, and 4-bedroom units even. Our target is workforce folks, like people that are, you know, firefighters that you saw here. We want them to be able to afford an apartment. And another unique thing that the pipeline building or the public safety building is going to be targeted for home ownership. Because it's a historic building and we're using historic tax credits, it's going to probably be a 5-year waiting period because of the funding requirements. But so it'll be sort of a rent to own option for the folks in that building. But they will be able to have ownership, like true ownership of their apartment after a time period. We think those kinds of investments and that kind of ability really raises the neighborhood. You know, people are invested in the neighborhood. They're not just renting low-income apartments while they can, and they're eager to get out of the neighborhood as soon as they can. We want people to put down roots and that really can invest in the neighborhood.
You guys already purchased all the property there?
So the city owns the property. And we're in negotiations with the city right now to acquire the property, so we don't actually have access, which is why we haven't actually activated the site yet. We're in the discussions with the city and with all the lawyers and kind of working out those details. But the city does own the property.
Is this faithful to your vision? You want the whole block? You're taking Crown Burger and Twilight?
No, those are not included in this.
It's a ghostly building.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, just curious.
Yes, and I should say too, these are not probably what the buildings are gonna look like. These are very early designs, really focused more on size and massing than on actual, you know, how they're gonna look.
Except for the first building has to.
Yeah, the first building will.
For historical reasons.
Exactly.
I'm not even allowed to talk about this anymore because I want to raise pigs there. Like in China, start at the top and march down. Harvest the hearts and
There you go.
So, another kind of, I think, exciting feature of this, there will be some retail that's included, especially along the ground floors. We're targeting, daycare, healthcare, and like healthy food options. We also are designing some kind of business incubator type spaces for makers, people that want to start businesses, or, you know, small businesses, people that are running, you know, 2 or 3 person, businesses that just need a space to work out of. Again, raising the neighborhood, there's gonna be a fair amount of public space that's acceptable not only to the residents, but also to the general community. So green space, public art, recreation spaces, things like that. All of this is being designed into the overall plan. We also have a big focus on, you know, environmental factors, energy efficiency, and transportation obviously is a huge part of this particular location, especially with the bus corridor and the proximity to tracks. So all of these things together, we think is going to make a really positive impact on the community. We want to continue to engage with you all who live in that community. Again, we don't feel like this is just completely our vision. I think we're starting and we have some expertise in how to move projects forward. But we also know that this project or this location has had some stops and starts in the past, and I've heard from a lot of the community already that there's some skepticism that this can be accomplished. And so hopefully I can provide you with a little bit of you know, positive momentum that we are very actively working on this. We already have some really good ideas, and more than just ideas about the funding mechanisms that are going to pay for this. This is not going to be paid for with public money. It's going to be private and you know, other grants and things that we can identify. So I'm happy to answer any questions if you have some. Start with
What's your timeline and how soon can we start seeing some activation in that site?
Yeah, to be completely honest with you, we had hoped by the end of the summer that we would already have activation. The site access has been a little bit trickier than we thought, working through with the city and the various attorneys that we have to do. We do have a draft agreement that's in place, actually was sent to the city as of today. And so I'm hopeful, fingers crossed, that we can very quickly move that forward and start that process. We have had a number of conversations with some community groups that are active and they're really would like to use this spot for some really exciting things. And so, you know, hopefully we can do that. And if folks have ideas on what you'd like to see there, I'm definitely open to that.
We definitely want to be a part of the conversation.
Yeah,
So.
absolutely. Look forward to that.
I would like to say about the rent to own, is there any case studies you can show, like, right, look into in Utah or nationwide, where they take a historical building and it's kind of modern, and then they've actually created it to own?
So the rent to own structure, I mean, condominiumizing things is pretty common. It's much less common to do it in a historic building because of the cost that's involved, especially when it's a adaptive reuse. So you're taking something that was once basically an office building and you're converting it to residential, and that causes a pretty high expense, not only because you have to remediate all of the asbestos and, you know, anything that's been in the building since 1950. So the building hasn't designed that way. So you have penetrations for plumbing and sewer and, you know, all of those things. It is complex, and it doesn't happen a lot. I would say it doesn't happen a lot in the West where we are, but it's very common on the East Coast. So I think there are many examples in New York and Washington, DC, you know, along the East Coast rather. And in fact, our partner, Redevelopment, is out of New York. One of the primary reasons that we chose that developer to partner with us as the local entity was because they have a lot of experience doing this exact thing.
I talked with you before about that, we need to have police officers living in the building. I've been trying to talk to police and tell them that it's cool to live downtown, but I haven't had anybody who believes me yet. So what can we do to convince them that it's cool? You know, setting roots and building that social equity so that we can, you know, invest in our communities. I think is super important. I think, you know, having police and school teachers, firefighters living in our community is a critical part.
Yeah, that's part of the reason, and thank you for bringing that up, because I agree, and what we really thought, like when we sat down and sort of tried to vision and looking at the city's RFP and what they wanted, and they asked for a lot. To go into this project, and we thought, well, what do we really want to accomplish? And when we thought about it, what we wanted to accomplish was the ability to get folks that have maybe struggled to be able to own a home or to live downtown. Like, what do they need? And so some of these bigger units, I think, is one of the things that's going to be a real draw. I think the access to transportation is going to be a huge draw. I think these other amenities that we're building into this, it's going to create more of a community sense, and this isn't just a you know, 4 walls and a roof. What we see, what we're trying to accomplish with this is something that is really holistic and that is a place. It's a destination where people want to be. And so I think if we can accomplish that, I think we naturally draw folks to that, like anybody would. Doesn't matter whether you're a teacher or a firefighter or a policeman, they're going to want to be a part of something like that. But the other component of that is the affordability component. You know, we're building a very expensive project, but because we're the housing authority and we have certain abilities to tap federal funding and other things that we do through Section 8 and whatnot, this isn't going to be a low income property. But we can use some of those subsidies to help folks that are in kind of that middle range, which, you know, we know across the city, everybody's squeezed. It doesn't matter, except for maybe the people at the very low end. You know, it's expensive for even people making pretty good money to live in Salt Lake. And so
I just encourage whatever we can do to I don't know, not just build it and they will come kind of an approach, but like, let's see what we can do to engage.
Yeah.
These other communities see.
As we move
like
further along,
you're not generally like already involved, so.
yeah, so we're definitely going to have a lot of outreach. There's going to be a massive amount of you know, communication and direct outreach to the types of folks that we want to be here. And I encourage you guys to help us with that.
What demographic are you looking to attract, like young families with children? And if so, are there schools nearby for these young children?
Yeah, so families is part of what we're trying to bring in. We have in the current plan, the way that it's structured, about 17% of the units are 4-bedroom. And then we've got about another 13% that are like 3 bedrooms, and then a larger number of 1 and 2 bedrooms. We know that the ones and two bedrooms are popular in downtown. You have a lot of like single folks or maybe couples. But the families have been sort of squeezed out, and I think that was one of the main drivers of the RFP for the city, is that they really wanted to see an investment in some of these larger units to keep some of those folks in place. And, I think some of the schools that are nearby, they're probably not there long if you don't need families downtown. So that is part of the driving force in this plan.
I actually live right in cityscape right next to where this would be. I'm wondering if there'll be like connections to these like nice streets that are there. And beyond that, if there'll be thoughts about connections to the existing properties behind as well.
Yeah.
Because I look out my window and I see there's all these apartment buildings and this asphalt everywhere. Yeah, you can see the fabric of this really amazing little micro community in this one block. And that's a good start of it, but I don't see connections over there, like towards the back. And then one of my entrance exits is into the Twilight parking lot, and it's currently just a fence to the property there.
Yeah.
And I would love to be able to walk out and then be right into
a green space.
Exactly. And you'll get like 500 people just from that apartment coming into this place.
So that absolutely is the intention, and we've been working with our architects specifically to do that, and we've had conversations with, I think, almost all of the homeowners on this entire block already. I'm not going to go into the details of those because a lot of them are not solidified, and I don't want to say something that they would be unhappy with. But our vision is that this becomes kind of a central hub for this entire block, and if not a larger part of the neighborhood. But the through streets, the connections, there are places where we can really, I think, have a positive impact and drive. I've heard and I know what people feel about the Magnolia and the difficulties that have been part of that. We've been in discussions with the folks at the road home, and we think that there are some solutions that we can build into our development that will help them do a better job with what they're doing as well. And with all of these apartment complexes, there's ability to kind of raise everything. And the adage that the rising tide raises all the boats. That's sort of what we're going for.
Yeah, but the way there's like everything's fenced off in this whole area right now, not even just that property, but everything around it. You're able to see people climbing fences and breaking fences and digging holes.
The first thing, as soon as we can get access to this property, the first thing that we're gonna do is like modify that and make this accessible in a way that keeps the safety. And you have all these like lane alleyways and that just invites, that invites negative interactions.
And doing that and making like these nooks and crannies, even though other people hiding, like there's even some spot. It's right here, here, but I see people back there and they'll see it up and then. But really, there's currently fences all along right here, all the way down. That's all solid, very clean, and it's asphalt.
Barbed wire.
Yeah. Well, like this, like barbed wire, it's just not great. It's a very, this block and the block next to it, there's essentially a black hole between second and second. And then you got this nice neighborhood arts districts and all these other things.
Yeah, we're seeing the exact same thing that you're seeing, and we are actively trying to address those issues. Again, both in the short term and the long term. And I should say, for those of you that aren't familiar with the housing authority's properties, although our mission is to serve low-income folks, our properties are very well run. I encourage you to take a look at some of our properties. I appreciated what Cowboy was saying, the property in Cowboy earlier. I have some very strong opinions about how engaged property management needs to be and present. I think those are things in addition to the rules that she was talking about and the enforcement of these. I think having active landlords that are on site and people that aren't just in it to flip properties, like we don't sell properties, we are here in Salt Lake, our mission is to serve the people here. And we're gonna be here long term, and so this isn't a money making venture for us, this is a community building venture.
I was just add on to what you say. I live 2 doors down from a housing authority property, and it's small, so there's not 24/7 on-site management. But the people who live there feel safe there. They like living there, and when there have been people dealing drugs in there, they get evicted almost immediately. The housing authority is really good at managing low-income properties.
So in the renderings, it looks like there's good walkable space, open space between the buildings, and I know that the zoning consolidation. One of the things that's in there is like, I believe this area would be all potentially 0 side rear setbacks on the property. Is that something that can be sure of that this is gonna be like those walkable areas? Because I think, that could very easily just become like a, because of the zoning, it could just be all very non-walkable area allowed.
Yeah, we understand the zoning. And we could have made things higher, we could have made things bigger and really push those boundaries. That wasn't what the city requested through the RFP process. That's not the vision that they have, and it's not the vision that we have. Like, these public spaces are extremely important to us. And, we see this, again, it's not just a place to live, it's not just a place to hang out. We want this to be a community thriving, which is so important. And we need open space to be able to do that, especially if you're young families. Whether they're young families or older families or multi-generational families, however you want to define or look at those. If people need to breathe, they need open space, they want to have pets.
And could you help evangelize that to the other developers?
Absolutely. Well, and again, we've already had some conversations with some of these other properties and talk about, look, what if we did a walkway directly into some of this green space? It gives your residents an opportunity to directly access these spaces with their pets or
Yeah, it seems unfair when you have the one property with that nice open space and then the next property goes in.
Yeah.
With no space at all, it keeps walls, yeah.
There's a lot of space, taking Cherokee right here, and I am right here.
Right, it would be lots of that, like I said. I hope it stays, similar to the rendering, because that's what we're on.
Yeah, and things will change as we get further down the road and with the development, with the planning, with the design. All those things are gonna shift a little bit, but I think our vision is gonna stay pretty close to this. The key elements of what we proposed are gonna stay very true to us. And we've already had some conversations with the mayor's office on what that's gonna look like, and again, some of the other property owners, but I think that this community, this neighborhood is gonna be really happy with how this turned out. And I just wish we could do it faster than what we're probably gonna have to do. We are probably looking at 3 phases, and a lot of that's due to funding constraints and the ability to actually pay for all of it. So it's gonna take a few years before this full vision is realized. But again, our immediate site activation, like we want to make this a staged process that's beneficial all along the way here for the houses.
Thanks, Jonathan. We hope that you'll keep us in the loop as things progress, and we can give you guys feedback and opinions if you want that.
Okay, I have one quick update.
Yeah.
You heard me if you're here last month to talk about the mobile app. The new one coming out. That's also one we probably have to use now. The new app, which is called ISLC, went live today. So if you are making those reports, if you can give that a try and see how it goes.
My SLC.
Yeah, it's a,
try to do crap.
Yeah, especially if you see graffiti, if you see shopping.
Yeah, because we already are on that city mobile.
Yeah, and that one's, I don't know exactly when that one's gonna shut down, but in probably the next couple of months, it'll only do mass mobile, so if you have a chance to go and try and use the regulations. Let's see what you know, so, the homelessness ones are. Think a little differently, there's a community, some housing, section, that's. Scroll and else. Report abandoned personal belongings, report encampment, shop car recovery, which will all be a little different.
So what, where are you on?
Why don't you search for my SLC instead of SLC?
Yeah, so.
My SLC model. So you want to update.
Yeah, there's stuff for everything.